This is 1865. Welcome to the Group of Death. So, hello and welcome to the 1865 Group of Death. We're recording this less than 24 hours to go before the World Cup kicks off in Mexico. So, to get you in the mood, we've got a brand new podcast for the next few weeks only. While we've got some strength in depth, today's starters are 1865 sketch artist extraordinaire, Jeremy Davis.
Good evening. And can I just say, I am excited.
Excellent. We'll come back to that in a sec. For tonight only, all the way from Scotland, we've got Matt Turpin.
Hello. Yes, apologies for the backdrop here. I haven't figured out how to put backgrounds on, so you're going to have some of my hotel bed in the backdrop here. Also, I'm in a building with incredibly high ceilings, so I sound like I'm in a cathedral. So apologies for any audio issues there.
A cathedral of football.
That's the one.
And then, unusually for a Forest Adjacent podcast, we have our resident Derby fan, Rob Jones. Hi, Rob.
Hello. Yeah, that boo. I'm fronting him. Where's the link?
So let's start with something quite simple. So what exactly are you looking forward to most at this World Cup? Let's start with you, Rob.
Do you know what? My son has just hit his teenage years, and football's not kind of his life like it is and has been for me. And thanks to kind of maybe friends from school, he's got a real interest. And all of a sudden, we're talking about some of the big players, but also some of the teams and when are the matches on. And even though it's, in America and the timing's all over the shop, I've just got that fever for getting the game on when you get home from work, the 5 p.m. game. And even if it's two nations that you wouldn't normally watch, I think that's bringing me back memories of when I was a kid and you'd come home from school and you'd put BBC ITV on and it was, great, it's two teams. I'm just going to watch some football, learn about these players that you don't necessarily get to see very often, the Prem or the Championship in my case. So, yeah, I'm really excited for that. And then I'll worry about England when they come on, as soon as they kick off. The first round of games before we start, that's when I most enjoy
it. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, it's much the same. I think it's one of those summer things, isn't it? We obviously because of Qatar being in winter, we lost that last time. But that feeling of summer goes a bit weird, and you're lost in football, and there's not much. The sun's out, it's lovely weather, everyone's in a good mood. It just feels this weird intoxication that you get. I'm not an England fan, but I do support them when Scotland doesn't go in. So I have been supporting them a lot recently. But this World Cup I'm very much looking forward to. Scotland's no doubt doomed campaign and the fact how many times the word plucky underdog will be used to describe them.
Maybe Archie Gemmill, but
anyway.
Yeah. And obviously, Jeremy, you're very excited about this.
Oh, completely. Well, the thing I'm most looking forward to is the number of posts on social media from people who claim not to be watching the World Cup during the duration of the tournament, because, goodness me, I spend more time than is healthy psychologically and physically on LinkedIn, and the amount of virtue signaling from people that have been claiming not to be interested in this World Cup because it is the most corrupt the most political in history. And by the way, just look up World Cup 1978 on YouTube. But that's the thing that most excites me. Also, from a slightly more detached footballing perspective, just the chance to witness how some of the smaller teams set up tactically against some of the larger ones, and there will be plenty of Forest representation. And as a Nottingham Forest based fan base, we can thrill to the side of Chris Wood leading the line for the All Whites. But Sabri Lamouchi, who I didn't realise until early today, in fact, is going to be leading Tunisia out in the heat of the American sunshine. Going to be all kinds of familiar faces and names to look out for. So, I'm very much looking forward to seeing how the Nottingham Forest contingents get on for their various teams.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, my boss, he was having a rant at me today. He was talking about how he remembers 1966. He was just old enough to realize what was going on. But what he really remembers is the World Cup afterwards, because I think it was Mexico, and they arranged
Yeah.
for Bobby Moore to be arrested. So that before the night before a game. And so he was basically saying, you might think FIFA are corrupt, but actually they're the least corrupt they've ever been in their history at this moment in time.
And
So
it's that a much mythologized tournament. Everybody knows about Brazil 1970 being a byword for the beautiful game.
This is 1865. Welcome to the Group of Death.
I just wanted to say that there is like there's obviously been a bit made about the culture difference between the US and the rest of the world when it comes to football. And obviously the dynamic pricing thing has kind of reared its head. But I also found out, read a story 2 days ago where apparently FIFA managed to give away 60 tickets for matches
Yeah.
for free because their general level of competence didn't um, stretch as far as making a website that actually charged the punters at that point. However, they revoked the tickets, and their FIFA spokesman said the fans will be welcome to attend as long as they paid. Which, so, what I wanted to do is obviously just we're going to talk about England, we're going to talk about Scotland, we're going to deal with some of the stuff that everyone sort of knows about. But obviously, this is the biggest World Cup. It's like a ridiculous number of group games set up and whatever, and that's because there are loads of new teams and a load of teams that are making their debut and might. As you said, we might not know anything about. So, Rob, do you know anything about Jordan?
I mean, outside of a little bit of research, not a huge amount. Obviously, they with more teams, you could say qualifying was easy, but you just have to look at some of the names that haven't made it to the World Cup. And okay, yeah, Jordan don't play in Europe, so it's not like they were going against Italy, who didn't make it. But there's something to be said, and I think one of the things that's going to be common for some of these smaller teams, you look at, Jordan in Group J, they've kind of ruined the A theme in that group. You've got Argentina, Algeria, and Austria, who people have talked at length. You can see, Argentina. It's Messi and his teammates. He's amazing, but 4 years older. Is he going to do it? Algeria, led by Riyad Mahrez, who's incredible 10 years ago for that Leicester team. And so it's that about and Austria, who have always had, some good players. You look at Alaba at Madrid, but I look at Jordan and go, they're going to do two things. They're going to try and win one game, because if you can win a game, you've got a really good chance of finishing one of the best thirds. But also they're going to cause chaos if they take a point off someone like Austria or Algeria, who then might not even make it through. So if anything, I think they make it interesting where the other teams then they can't rely on, well, we'll all beat Jordan, and then we've got to, no, they might have to try and go for the win against each other. I think even Argentina is going to find it quite tricky in that group. I had a look at their list of players. None of them play in kind of necessarily big leagues that I would kind of be like, yeah, I know that. But I'm just interested to see how they cause a bit of chaos in that group.
Apparently, they're ranked at number 63. That's about the only fact I could find, which is pretty
And
good, really.
It's their first World Cup. They're
Yes.
one of four debutants. So yeah.
About you, Matt, depths of research on Jordan?
Yeah, I've done some very poor research, and all the thing I've turned up was it's the only country that was formerly known as Katie Price. So that's whatever that's worth.
So yeah, we can't really say much more about them. I think you're right, Rob. That group is going to be quite interesting because of the way the groups work. It's if you can't win outright 2 or 3 games, then yeah, it all goes up in the air. So Curacao, which is the smallest ever nation to qualify for the World Cup. Um, Tahith Chong, who I used to really rate when he played for Manchester United, he's the one to look out for them. And obviously the liqueur.
Yeah, that's that I can't get that out of my head. Blue curacao. I always pronounce it Curacao. Uh, if you add it to snakebite and add a vodka as well, it's known as a green witch apparently. So to find out it's an actual country was for someone who thought I knew quite a bit about geography. Obviously not. It's also probably the most mispronounced country in the World Cup. I think because Kyrgyzstan hasn't qualified, have they? So they take that now. So yeah. I think what's good about these little countries, though, and I think this is what FIFA are aiming for, is we remember, there's going to be lots of matches between teams, which it throws up the chance of an upset, and we all love an upset. We all love that, sort of odd little match, which the underdogs suddenly do something incredible, and something happens. And I think they're really good into that. They're looking for viral content, effectively. It's like FIFA have pivoted to socials by the looks of it, and I think there will be a few. There's always a team that does that. They often, manage to get through the group stage, get to qualifiers, get knocked straight out. But we're all gunning for them, although they, inevitably, one of 6 teams will win this.
And the other thing about them, of course, is they're managed by Dick Advocaat, who's probably the oldest manager there.
And also named after a drink. So how appropriate. 2 very unpalatable drinks at that. So
next on my list, if there's anything to say about Cape Verde. Also debutants, by the way.
I think they're the smallest African country. That's all. Again, quite an unknown, this one.
I read an interview with their captain. So he's the 38-year-old left back, and I thought, I've seen you somewhere. You kind of think, how on earth have I seen the left back? He plays for Tureens, who are in the second tier of Portugal, who won their national cup. They beat Sporting, and I was thinking that's still a bit weird. I know that, but I watched the penalty he scored in extra time. It was him that scored it. So he's going to the World Cup, literally probably on the biggest high, having led, beating Sporting in Portugal is a big deal, winning the cup for this second tier team. And now he gets to go and captain his country in their debut World Cup.
So, Jeremy?
All I can offer is that my son actually has a Cape Verde shirt because he signed up for this strange website which sends him out random football shirts. He has an AFC Richmond kit. I know that he got from the site, but the first shirt he actually received was a Cape Verde shirt. This was before they qualified for the World Cup, so they will be proudly sporting that. No callback intended to Sporting, but it works. I'll take it at every Cape Verde match. So yeah, I'm delighted that all of these so-called smaller nations have reached the World Cup. I'm just sad they aren't all in the same group as Scotland because
it would give us a chance.
Guys, I mean, I'm half Welsh, so
we'd still try to lose somehow.
And actually, apparently, Cape Verde did not concede a single goal in their qualifying campaign, so they must have something about them. I do remember, actually, many years ago, my friend and I, we went through and tried to do the maths, figuring out where we could move to, which would give us the greatest chance of getting into the national team. I think we concluded it was probably going to be San Marino.
That's the one.
Yeah. So you're thinking, I think it's 60,000 people. And so 30,000 of them are going to be women. At least 2/3 of them are not going to be the right age to play football. So you're down to 10,000 people there. So surely you're going to be somebody, you're going to be like better than Morgan Gibbs White on those odds to getting into the national team. And then the guy that, if you remember back many years ago. If you're as old as me, you remember when England needed to beat San Marino by 7 clear goals, and they lost. They would beat them 7-1 because Stuart Pearce put in a dodgy back pass, and then this guy nipped in front of him and scored.
I
That guy.
can't believe we're bringing this up on a Nottingham Forest podcast.
Well, no, but the reason for it is because that guy, he just worked in a computer shop. It's like it was like a part-time footballer. So, I mean, that's one of the great things about having lots of small nations. It's like,
Well, as a matter of fact, the other interesting thing about that is that at that point, Graham Taylor had introduced the tactical policy of booting the ball straight out of play from kickoff to try and gain territory in the opposition's half, which is something that's actually come back. So,
yeah. Graham
yeah,
Taylor, Thomas Frank.
there is a bizarre. Well, exactly. There are many links with, he was a man before his time.
So the other debutant I had down was Uzbekistan. Apart from Kushinov at Manchester City, I know absolutely nothing about them and couldn't really find anything out.
So I'll talk about that. They've got a striker called Shomorodov who scored quite a few in qualifying, and like you said, Kuzanov. And I look at them and go, they've got a really good centre back, and they've got a striker who at the World Cup could score goals. And I just think if they've got a couple of workhorse midfielders in
And
their
Graham
group,
Taylor in charge.
they're playing Portugal, who everyone loves Portugal's midfield, but I'm not sure about either end.
Mm.
And they've got a defender who can mark Ronaldo, and they've got a striker who can cause their backline problem. I'm just like that. I look at them and go, everyone is maybe a little bit like that's an easy win, but they could cause problems.
Yeah, which also that'd be amazing. Just would see them beat Portugal would be one of the stories of the tournament, I think. Also, especially if Cristiano Ronaldo's on the pitch.
Exactly. Just watch his face. That would be. I'd just stop watching. Would have peaked at that point.
So I just wanted to do a quick mention for New Zealand because I didn't realise this, but they've never won an actual World Cup match, made it through to the knockout round. So you think actually with the likes of Chris Wood and whatever, and in their whatever qualifying region thing, you'd think they'd be quite big hitters, but apparently they're not. But my favourite thing about New Zealand, have you heard about Tim Payne?
Yes.
So yes, the world's least known player. This Argentine guys basically wanted to promote him, which again made me think back to in the olden days when we used to collect the Panini stickers and whatever. And I remember getting a Spanish player called Albert Ferrer, and we ended up with about between 10 of us who were all collecting them, trying to do swaps and whatever. We ended up with probably 30 or 40 Albert Ferrers. I was like, what are we going to do with him? This Tim Payne, this century's Albert Ferrer.
What an accolade.
Did he end up at Chelsea?
Yes.
Well, there we are. So there's hope for Tim Payne yet.
Now, I was going to point about New Zealand that they have 5 sheep to every human in the country, but I decided to step that joke down for Rob's sake there, so I didn't
Hey.
I had a lot more on it, but I've toned it down. So.
I think go for it next time. Just go for it.
Okay.
This is 1865. Welcome to the Group of Death.
But enough on that stuff. What we need to get to now is Scotland, because I have one story about Scotland that I'd quite like to run through, which is about Craig Gordon. Matt, do you know about him?
I do have a keeper, oldest player, I think.
Yes.
He's there. I mean, I can I just point out that I did spend this. I got a train up from Nottingham to Glasgow Stay and did a load of research on Angus Gunn and had loads of Angus Gunn fans. And I got to Scotland, checked my phone, and Forest have let him go. So that one connection I could have made there between the two things has been ruined. They could have waited a day just to have finished fifth before they announced that, but no. Craig Gordon, yeah, I think he's the oldest player there, or the oldest player, or second oldest player to ever play in the
Yeah,
World Cup.
if he gets on the pitch, he'll be the second oldest player
Yeah,
ever.
Gunn's number one in that. But yeah, that would be quite incredible. He's actually older than most of the players. Sorry, he's played international football for Scotland for longer than I think 3 or 4 of the players in Scotland's squad have actually lived on Earth though. So 22 years he's been getting sort of regular caps. He was out for ages. But yeah, fantastic player. A little side note on him as well. He's got 3 boys called Ace, Axel, and Archer, which I think are just the most 80s names ever. So respect to them.
If you're old enough to remember Emlyn Hughes, do you know what his kids are called?
Oh, Emma Lynn. Yeah, and
Emlyn Jr.
Yeah, that's just terrible. It's Jermaine Jackson levels of. I think he's got Majesty, hasn't he? So, Emlyn Hughes of all people as well. Who's just, yeah, a shame. I will do the same to my kids though, probably. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he does get a game. It is pretty tight between him and Gunn. He does bring experience, but yeah, can you? Basically, Scotland's not got that many good keepers, so he's not there out of anything spectacular he's done. He is a filler keeper, but yeah, it'll be good to see him get on there and pushes Zimmer frame to the onto the pitch there.
Rob, as a blended household, how is your family feeling about Scotland's chances?
I mean, up here with my family, we're kind of all English. My mum kind of is the Scottish one, so but to be fair, I mean, I tell her about goings on more than she knows. Do you know what? I don't hate their chances, because I think, like we said, this World Cup is such a unique thing that we're not going to be quite sure. They've just got to get one of the best 8 third place teams, and you kind of think that Haiti game is going to be really big, because you feel like Brazil and Morocco are going to be really tough. But what have Scotland done really well the last few years is they've stepped up their level. Like you feel like they can compete with more teams. And I look at Craig Gordon and think, is he like what? If you look at the England squad, why the justification for Jordan Henderson being there? You know, for Dan Burn, these kind of good characters who've been there. In Henderson's case, you know, done it on a big level, who'll lead. And, you know, England take a third young keeper to kind of prep him because they think we're going to do this again. Whereas Scotland, we're going to take this older head who's just going to calm the backline down. You know, Andy Robertson, who's been at club level, you know, Scott McTominay is like the biggest thing in Italy. So it's just, and I'd love it. I'd love it if he came on. I mean, let's be honest, if they're in that third group game and it looks like they're going out, chuck him up top. It's what you do in 5-a-side, wouldn't you? Or an 11-a-side game. Just get him on.
Put the blind veteran on.
I think of all the underdogs, and they're down at 250 to 1 at the moment, I think, or something like that. So they're not going to win, but but they do have a feeling. I don't know. They've had such a good run in. The friendlies have had leading up to this, scored 4 goals apiece in that. You know, obviously the Denmark game, McTominay, absolute top of his game. If they can cause a bit of chaos for Brazil, if they can actually get possession of Brazil, confuse Brazil, you know, I'm going on record saying this, knowing that full well it won't come true. But if it does, then I look like a genius, you see. So it works both ways here. So I get my credits both ways. But I don't know. As you say, best third place, getting in the third place could see them through. And that will be the best they've ever done. You know, they've never done this before and never got through. And that would be astonishing. And I know that's where getting to the World Cup is a huge thing for Scotland after so long without it. Qualifying would be, major.
I don't want to upset, you know, Forest fans, but John McGinn had an excellent end to the season, including that semi-final, and you know, listen, even I found it hard. That evening was tough, but he was excellent, and I think he has stepped up in big moments this year. So you look at him as that real engine room, but a bit of creativity. They've got a striker who scored a lot of goals for Hearts. I'm maybe because they're like my second team, you know, the half of me. I'm strangely optimistic that I think they will compete, and I think they will always have their eye on the Haiti game. But Morocco as good as everyone thinks they are. Brazil, they're not the kind of world beaters they were. Could they nick a point here or there? Absolutely.
Well, they've also got they're going to have massive support over there. I think they're in the top 10 of teams countries that apply for tickets, well above much bigger much bigger countries. We know what Scotland Army, Tottenham Army are like, sort of thing. They're going to be loud. They're going to be, that fabled 12th man is going to be in full effect there, and they're not as likely as some other nations to not be let into the America in the first place.
I texted just before Forest played Villa back in March. I texted my friend who is a Villa fan to say, I think John McGinn should A, score more, and B, just contribute more. And he scored that day, I believe, against Forest, and proceeded to score and assist in what felt like practically every game until the end of the season, including, of course, the second leg of the Europa League semi-final. So it's a bit like my fantasy league team in reverse. I seem to have this reverse Midas touch that any player I pass comment and will go on. It's sort of like the player score against their former club rule.
This is 1865. Welcome to the Group of Death.
Anyway, moving on to England, there's going to be 25,000 podcasts banging on about Thomas Tuchel's selection and tactics and whether Bellingham starts and whether Henderson should be there and all that sort of rubbish. So, dead easy. Rob, where are we going to finish?
I hope top. I think the game against Croatia is going to set the tone. I think if we win, I think it's okay. Focus on what time we're getting up, potentially in the round of 32. I think if we draw, it's not the end of the world. If we lose, it's not likely that we're going out in the group stage in this tournament. We're very much looking at the possible paths and who we're going to meet. But I feel like the last few tournaments, that's been our problem. We've almost worried too much about what's the easier route. And I feel this England team, you've just got to play to win. And I think Tuchel will bring that to this team. He'll set it up to win every game. But that first game is key. I'm going to say winners of the group.
Jeremy?
It's just a shame that every game can't go to penalties in the groups, because we're really good at penalties these days, aren't we? We can't do anything else, but we can win penalty shootouts. No, I mean, let me take you back to 2018, if I may. The day England played Sweden in the quarterfinal, I went to a theme park with my youngest child, who is now football mad, and missed, I believe Dele Alli scored. Anyway, I received a text alert on my phone when I was going on some roller coaster, or in the queue for some roller coaster. Gulliver's Land in Milton Keynes, highly recommended for anyone that happens to find themselves in the Milton Keynes area. The following morning, I went and played football with another bunch of middle-aged blokes in Bullock, and I played the best game of my life. I scored twice. I got an assist. I marked their best player out of the game to the extent that at the end of the match, he was running at me with a look of like murder in his eyes. And I had two choices. Either I could get out the way, stick my leg out, and he would go flying, or I could stand my ground, he would hit me, and I would go flying. And I opted for the latter option. He sent me flying. I put my hand down to catch myself, went down on my wrist like that, and ended up with a broken wrist. All I would say is there are apparently 154 Premier League players in the World Cup. And just to slay the elephant in the room, early doors, the idea that Morgan Gibbs-White is the 155th best player in the Premier League fills me with the sort of rage that the other guy clearly felt that day in 2018 when he broke my wrist. Because
How about you, Matt? Where do you think, as a Scotland fan, where do you think England will end up?
Well, I live in a household full of England fans, so I will have some form of support. I'll grudgingly support them as well, except when Scotland playing. I think we're going to do a lot better than people expect. I think we went through this whole period from I don't know, from Italia 90 onwards, where it was always seen that this is the one, we're going to do it this time. That's dragged on, and we've edged closer under Southgate and everything. But I think that expectation's gone a bit. I think there's been a little bit of deflation of that, and I think that's when we might surprise them. So the expectations are for Heat slightly off. I think England, I reckon semi-finals, which means they're going to crash out in the qualifiers now. And I think Scotland will, giving it some more thought, I think Scotland will qualify and will go out in the first knockout round 32. So round what is it, 64 now, isn't it? So,
yeah,
round 32, yeah.
Oh, 32 it is, yeah, I'm getting mixed up. Scotland to exceed expectations, and England too, but not win it.
I do think your comment about the Heat being slightly off could be inadvertently instructive, because I think back to 2006 in Germany when it was a particularly hot summer, and England, Scotland, even we just don't do well in warm weather, do we?
No. Well, my thinking is, no matter how well we do, there's one particular route where we end up playing Mexico in Mexico City, and the heat and the altitude, I can't see us dealing with that.
No, very true.
I think the route. If we win the group, it's like the most likely, and again, it's an absolute crapshoot. But it's Senegal, Mexico City, and then like Morocco, and you look at them and go, England should win, but let's be honest, they could lose to any of those.
Yeah,
like you wouldn't be surprised if they won. They could
lose to any of those, and then playing them in the heat and humidity against teams that are much more used to it than us. So yes, we'll leave it there. Thank you very, very much, Matt Turpin, Rob Jones, Jeremy Davis, and thank you very much for listening. We'll be back in a couple of days, probably Monday, as the first set of games get underway. Again, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you soon.
This is 1865. Welcome to the Group of Death.
Okay, anything else about Scotland?
They're going to get kicked up.
How about a bonus quick-fire Angus Gunn fact round?
Well, no, I've ripped my notes up now, so you're not having it, mate.